In terms of style, President John Mahama chose a combination of prose and poetry ahead of straightforward speech at Oxford University in the United Kingdom. At the end of the day, his lecture enchanted his audience, who told our correspondent Napoleon Ato Kittoe that the choice of theme and style by the Ghanaian leader was perfect. The president spoke on the theme Africa on the Move, Politics and the People.
President John Mahama, flanked by his brother Ibrahim, and university dons of a top-class university in the United Kingdom. Oxford University is reported to be the oldest university in the English-speaking world. There is no clear date about its foundation, but teaching in some form is said to have started in 1096. Early education at Oxford gathered momentum from 1167, when King Henry II banned English students from attending University of Paris. By 1201, the university was headed by a Magister Scholarum Oxoni, on whom the title of Chancellor was conferred in 1214. And in 1231, the masters were recognized as a universitas or corporation. Less than a century later, Oxford had achieved eminence above every other seat of learning, and won the praises of popes, kings, and sages by virtue of its antiquity, curriculum, doctrine, and privileges. Fast forward till today, and the university continues to make greater progress. It was another edition of Oxford Africa Conference, and the special guest of honor was the Ghanaian leader. This was a sequel to other invitations by renowned global institutions of higher learning to President John Mahama to give intellectual insights into modern Africa. Inside the hall where he delivered the lecture were portraits of personalities across time. Maurice Harold Macmillan, British Prime Minister between 1957 and 1963, was a Chancellor between 1960 and 1988. Another Prime Minister, Sir Edward Heath, who served between 1970 and 1974, was also one-time president of the Oxford's Hillary. The occasion could be segmented into a triad of expectations, the delivery, and the responses.
I expected to hear a lot of really positive things about the future of Africa, particularly in relation to African youth and business and entrepreneurship. And yeah, just kind of forward-looking thinking.
I'm intrigued to see what he has to say with regards to youth engagement. All of the changes that are happening in terms of the investment into Ghana, the infrastructure, the tourism, jobs. Everyone knows the dynamics of the population of the African continent, of our country Ghana. And in 10, 20 years' time, the second generation are going to be able to take over, but how are they being engaged in the development process?
President John Mahama, who is a professional communicator and historian, employed a lot of literary devices to advance his points to the elite audience.
It is true that our fiscal borders, those colonial constructs, are no longer as monumental or divisive, but they are not the only borders in existence. There are new borders being drawn every day by religious intolerance, by economic disparity, by gender discrimination, by xenophobia and ethnic conflicts, and by terrorism, hatred, and fear. The challenge to moving forward is finding new ways to not only cross those borders, but to also erase them completely.
His image might have soared like a titan, given the response by his audience, who granted interview to GBC 24. Only one person, a Kenyan, said she had reservations, and that was the non-mention of the Burundi crisis.
I thought it was a very refreshing talk to hear someone from Africa talking about the dangers of a single story and the cross-border, the boundaries which were fixed in Berlin and how they have inhibited us.
I quite enjoyed his speech, to be honest. I feel he touched on very important points. We generally don't see ourselves as Africans, we see ourselves as from different countries, and he actually touched on the very important fact that these boundaries were given to us by foreigners.
I really much enjoyed his speech. I'm from Kenya, so I felt really proud when he mentioned some of the innovation that's happening in our country with regards to mobile technology, mobile telephony, and how we are the forerunners in terms of mobile money transfer.
Right Honourable Paul Boateng of the British House of Lords, the upper chamber of Parliament, had this to say.
I think the President made a really good speech today because he addressed the issues of African integration from a cultural perspective. He made it quite clear that there is, for the 21st century, a new Pan-Africanism that rejects the old colonial boundaries, that recognizes the specific nature of an African identity that is built on a shared and communal interest. So it was a great speech, well received.
One statement by President Mahama that thrilled Oxford and drew the most applause was this African proverb. The reason the hunter is always victorious is that the lion has not got anyone to tell its story, unquote. A parent wake up to Africa to set up and own the narrative about the continent. Napoleon Ato Kittoe, Oxford.